Everybody, here we go. We are back. We are live. It is time to kick off the season with a podcast, man. I got my one and only, my ride or die breaking coin. How are we doing tonight, man?
Doing great tonight. Ready to go over a lot of these teams. I mean, the draft was absolutely insane. We got new players like Heps Kid and Repeat who are in that bubble. I mean, Repeat's in that X series. So, I mean, it's interesting to see what they're going to bring in Div 1. And then got Div 2. I mean, some newcomers, but also some old timers as well. And then Div 3 and Div 4, you know, you got the classics, the Polashes, the Sweaties, you know, the Ahmeds. And I'm just curious to see what they are going to do this season.
Yeah, man. I mean, Div 1 especially, there's just so many newcomers, so many big name players that have just shown up out of the blue, out of nowhere that I wasn't really expecting to make an appearance here in Season 2, but we're very happy to have them. And if you guys didn't see the announcement, you didn't see what we've been talking about, our main objective tonight is me and Break going to be going over the power rankings. First things first with you guys live here on the podcast. We're going to be breaking it down. Me and Breaking are two of the guys a part of our power ranking team. If you're new to RLM, there's a group of guys that are trusted that I personally know that keep up with this league almost as much as I do. And that we put together a rankings of where we think these teams should land, not based off of standings, but purely just based off that eye test, purely just based off of that roster, right? And so we put an accumulation, and then we put together power rankings for you guys. So I got my guy Breaking here because he knocked out a couple, and he's right there with me, man. It was tough to determine some of these top Div 1 teams.
Yeah, it was really tough. I mean, you got so many heavy hitters. I mean, you got Shocks, you got Hebs Kid, you got Repeat, you got Mystical, you got Ren. I mean, these are like 2K plus players. I mean, Repeat is RLCS. And to see these guys showing up to RLM is just absolutely fascinating. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching these games this season.
Yeah, big thing with the Repeat team, man. I was really looking at it when I saw him get picked up by Midland. You know, I was very shocked, you know, because he joined late. He was very quiet. And I haven't seen too much yet from him Breaking, so you got to wonder, you know, with him being an RLCS caliber player, sometimes you can't just throw those guys together, you know. You got to make sure that roster is built around him. I'm a little bit worried about that Midland team thus far because I've never seen any of those three play together.
I haven't either, but knowing that, you know, Greninja and his franchise, I mean, he knows what he's doing. My guess with the Repeat is it, you know, he's a busy man, all right? He's played RLCS, the big leagues, all right? So this guy's trying to do his best. I mean, I'm just happy to have the guy in the league, all right?
Yeah, man, and I see a lot of Div 1 guys in the chat. I see Bluey coming out here, man. So excited we got Bluey back for Season 2. I see my guy Shock representing the Paris City Swarm. You know, Kenny, congratulations getting up there to Div 1. Much deserved, man. Made a lot of progression last season. I see that bot still being a little aggressive, guys. I'm probably just gonna get him out of here at some point. I'm just kind of annoyed with him. I think that's what happened last time. But a lot of Div 1 goats. I got the power ranking here. I'm gonna go ahead and slide it on over so you guys can see it first live with me and Breaking here. We've already been looking at it for quite some time. Number 1 team coming out here. If you guys don't know, now you do. The Vigilantes, man. Let me tell you something. That team right there, Breaking. It was very heavy between them and the Paris City Swarm. I feel like those two guys really those two teams did a great job going after the top tier players to build their franchise around.
Yeah, absolutely. And unanimously, it's been 1 and 2. I mean, to get number 1 power ranking coming out of the gate, I mean, you got to do something right with your roster. And Venice definitely has. I mean, it's going to be scary. I mean, Ren, 10-piece nuggets in Lumi or Lemmy? Not sure the pronunciation, but either way, I mean, 2 of those players are hard hitters. I mean, 10 piece from last season went absolutely crazy in the playoffs when they had the bracket reset, and then they were able to win that best of 7. And then Ren's just been a hard hitter. I mean, 2K plus player. You got 2 of them on your team. That's gonna be a tough team to beat.
100%. And real quick, guys, we did not miss it. Rhea and Riley just went off on the subs. Oh man, thank you guys so much for gifting those. Riley's as excited as we are here. He's got his Toledo Blazemans coming in top 10 in Div 1, and now Rhea looking to shoot back here, throwing some more. Holy cow, the sub goat is back. This man is rocking this season. Thank you so much, Rhea. Thank you so much, Riley. You know, you guys have been huge supporters of RLM since the jump, and I would just greatly appreciate you guys so much. I'm sure the crowd, I'm sure everybody out there, all the viewers are loving that as well. You guys make sure to show some love to those guys for showing love back to y'all and giving y'all those subs, man. Thank y'all so much.
Absolutely, as these subs are what keeps the league alive. I mean, this man Ray, this man Riley, I think Knuckles in the mix too. I mean, without these guys, I mean, we wouldn't have had such a big prize pool as we did this season, Camaro.
Oh, 100%, man. And if you guys don't know, every single thing that we earn from this Twitch goes directly towards the prize pool and, you know, just trying to make this stream better. So I really appreciate it, man. I mean, just from the bottom of the hearts, you guys come out here and you guys show some love and support. We just try to dump it right back into the community the best we can. So if y'all don't know already, the prize pool is up to $1,000 this season for season 2. Beyond excited to say that. Hopefully that can continue to grow and just get bigger and bigger. We've doubled the prize pool from what season 1 was, and we've also doubled our player base, man. We've doubled our player base since season 1, and we're continuing to just grow more and more and more. Next season, I would not be surprised if we're not at 20 franchises. We probably could have squeezed it in this season, but it just would have been really tight. So we wanted to play it safe and just make sure that we, you know, like I just said, play it safe. We want to make sure things are clean and under control. We don't want to get a little too sporadic, but looking right there, there's a new if you notice here, all 3 of the top 3 Div 1 teams are brand new franchises breaking, because rounding out the top 3, the Nagasaki Ronin coming in there too. Listen, Manzar Flying is another name that I am beyond excited to see in this league. When he joined in, I was not too sure how active he was going to be, but he's been in the chats. I've seen him in Div 1 General. He's been talking up a storm. He seems excited, and if he's locked in and engaged, he's got a great team around it, because I know you remember Mystical last season from Midland. He was a bit of a beast.
Mystical was definitely a beast. I mean, almost keeping Midland alive in a series I believe I watched. I think it was against Boston, where they took him to Game 7 off of a mystical clip. And, I mean, just seeing him paired up with Mantis Flying and then throwing Vulcan in the mix, I mean, it's going to be another scary team. I mean, there's not going to be many teams that we're going to look at and say, that team isn't scary. I mean, right now, Div 1 is at its peak, Camaro.
Oh, yeah, 100%, man. Div 1 is just going all out. Another new face coming in here actually boosted the Morgantown Monsters up to the 4th ranked spot. I feel like they could have been a little bit higher potentially, because this man Crab, if y'all don't know him, now you do. He's a level 3 or price 360 player in this league. One of the top tier players, and Buzz Nutley went out of his way to snag him up early, bringing him in as the captain. He's built a pretty good team around him. Some new faces for me breaking. I have not seen the rest of the guys. I saw Crab in a couple tryouts. It was a pleasure to talk to. He seemed pretty locked in, and he did the most scouting out of all the captains that I saw. So I'm feeling pretty confident these guys sitting at top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not too familiar with Crab, but if you say what he is, man, I'm going to take your word there. And whenever you're that 360 max price, I mean, you gotta be dangerous. So I'm just curious to see what that man's gonna do on the field this season.
And you want to talk about some faces we are familiar with, though, breaking. We got a bit of a new pairing up there in Amarillo, rounding out our top 5. The captain has returned from the championship roster last season. Pizza's the only one that's made his return, and he picked up a captain from a pretty good franchise, a franchise that you were pretty familiar with from last season. MX North heading up there, pairing up with Pizza. They brought themselves into the top 5, man. I'm wondering how great this pairing is going to be. They're going for more of a balanced approach. They're not too top heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know all 3 of these guys, and each one of them in other leagues are strong. I mean, you got Pizza, who with the Amarillos last season absolutely dominated in the playoffs, getting that bracket reset. And then you have North, who was a big key in Boston being competitive. And then you have Kratos, which I've seen in another league at their top rank, and he's very solid as well. So when you have a balanced team like this, I mean, it's not really about one person shining. It's about the entire team playing as a cohesive unit. And if that works, I mean, it could be bad. I mean, it could be really scary for everybody else involved. 100%.
Real quick, just want to announce that we did hit 50 subs already for this stream alone. So again, thank you guys so much for subbing. That is a huge accomplishment, huge thing. We've done it a couple times last season. It's great to get the season kicked off right with that. So again, thank you, Ray. Thank you, Riley. I think Knuckles threw a couple in there too. Don't want to miss out on my guy Knuckles as well. Now, getting to a franchise, like I said a second ago, that you're familiar with breaking. A whole different looking team, except D Brown decided to bring back not North. They brought back Unto Jupiter, and you know he did a lot of replay reviews with some of the lower divs last season. He showed some great leadership. He seems like a player that really wants to make people better. Now he's got two guys above him, and a Drift, who's a bit of a journeyman last season, and then Scythe, who made it to the top 4 in playoffs. But my only issue with what they've done is Scythe and the Detroit Dragons, man, they kind of popped out at the end of the playoffs. I mean, we're honest up here in the podcast. They did not want the smoke. They were nervous about the matchup. It just did not show up to the game. I'm not too confident making that my top player in the league.
Yeah, me either. I mean, whenever you have, players on a team dip out in a playoff match, I mean, I get it. You're in the lower bracket, but I mean, a shot's a shot, right? I mean, you're never out until you give up, and he can't have that mentality this season. He has got to keep it locked in. I mean, even if they go to the lower brackets, I mean, we saw AMA do it. It's possible. It is possible in RLM to perform a bracket reset. It doesn't matter whether you're at the SSL level or you're as low as the Champ 2 level. I mean, it is possible. We've seen it. So, I mean, Scythe cannot do that team again. I mean, he cannot let down his team. And knowing Jupiter, he's going to keep the train on track. I mean, he's a fantastic leader, good guy all around, and good coach too. I mean, he's humble, and he makes sure that even when he knows that he's not necessarily the best player on the field, he's giving solid advice.
And that's a great captain to have. That's a great leader to have on your franchise, man. So D Brown obviously recognizing that, doing a great job. He picked some great captains this year. He's put together some great teams. We'll get to those divs in a second. Moving on to number 7, you see the mid-limb Manicores, who had a real up and down season. You see one of their OGs. You see Dimitri in the chat. We miss you this season, Dimitri. Hopefully everything's going well, man. Hopefully you can come in at some point, or maybe at least make a debut back in season 3. But the mid-limb Manicores, they fall to 7 here, Breaking. I say fall, and I use that word strongly because they got repeat. They got arguably an immediate top 3 player. Some have been saying the number 1 player just based off of accolades. But the issue is we just haven't seen much activity from him yet, which I think is why they fell so far down here in these power rankings.
Yeah, and we really haven't seen much from Boone and Mitch. I mean, I'm not too certain of who those guys are either. So, I mean, it makes a little bit of sense why they're middle of the road. I mean, we just don't know. I mean, we don't know other than repeat, and that's why they're 7. I mean, they could have fallen even lower if repeat wasn't on that roster, because as of now, I have no idea who Mitch or Boone are.
Yeah, a couple new faces, man. I do know that Greninja did speak a little highly of Boone, and he was very excited to get him on as the captain. So hopefully we start to see them pick it up a little bit at some point. And speaking of another new franchise here, we just saw their FO, Riley Redbeard, in the chat, coming out here with one of the pieces of the champion Amarillo Armadillos from Season 1, Anthony 8 Pizza. And not only was he a champion, he was a key contributor to helping Shox get over the hump and helping 10-Piece Nuggy get things going. We see Shox, we see 10-Piece now branch out, Breaking. They immediately go to a top 3 team. Anthony 8 Pizza, he's now the leader. He's the face of a new franchise here. They're not getting the same respect, though, that the Vigilantes and the Swarm are.
No, they're not. And, my guess is it's the pricing, right? They don't have any hard hitters on the team. They kind of have a little bit more of a well-balanced team. They got a lot of cap space. I mean, they got 44 for a number 8 seed. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, I'm curious to see how Yo and Jason play. I mean, obviously we know Anthony 8 Pizza is an absolute stud. He's going to go out there and try to get it done. But it's interesting to see this old AMA team kind of splinter off that dynasty and go their separate ways into new teams.
Didn't last very long, man. I mean, just instantly moved on.
Yeah.
Anthony now with a chance to be that number 1 option when he was a number 2 and arguably even the 3rd option a lot of times last season, where it felt like Nuggy and Shox really were that driving force and Anthony just kind of cleaned up. It'll be interesting to see, like you said, if Jason can step in to such big shoes. So I wish all the love for them. They're clearly going top 8 because of the pedigree of Anthony 8 Pizza, though. And now another franchise who, I was expecting actually that guy Bluey down there to be a part of this season. The Phoenix Phantoms coming out here with a new look roster, all new players. I'm not too familiar with them. Froze is someone that I've seen we speak highly of. He's known of him for a while. He's a low price player though, trying to build another one of those maybe more all around the same price teams, Breaking. But like you said, with the skill getting as great as it, or with the skill gap increasing as much as it has, I think going with these lower tier teams is not going to cut it here in Division 1 this season.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they know each other. I mean, I can talk highly of Froze. I mean, he plays for a good CRL team, and but I'm not too familiar on Gamma. I've heard the name Gamma, but I don't know much about Jim John. You know, I'd like to see them use that cap space a little bit. You know, they got 55 to work with. That's a lot. It's a lot of cap space. I mean, they could get a 360. I mean, they could get a 360, and you know, my thoughts are maybe they've played together. You know, sometimes chemistry is more valuable than having, you know, a higher priced player. And I think that's what Phoenix is going for this season.
Yeah, a lot of guys. Driz giving a little love to Jim John down there. Bluey giving us a little bit of insight. Might be making some moves to Phoenix. I don't think Bluey's on a roster yet, Bluey. So I would imagine they make that move relatively soon because I don't know exactly where Bluey's at. I think Bluey would obviously increase the skill a little bit there, bring up the cap some. So hopefully that happens sooner. On the Cobra, so the Cobra snatched you up then clearly. Oh, you gotta get through Zen, man. You gotta see what Zen's doing. Yeah, hey, speaking of the Cobras, they're next up, sitting at number 10 right here, Bluey. I think a lot of it had a credit to do with you. I've heard good things about Jazidi, coming actually from Zenitas. Zen with an opportunity here to lead a franchise. He was a player that stepped up a lot last season, subbed up, and was a temporary signing for a lot of teams and played well, consistently played well, but never really got a chance to get onto a roster. And now the Cairo Cobras, led by Ty Rogers, takes up the opportunity to pick him up as a captain. I think he did a great job drafting. Doesn't seem like Bluey's too happy with his landing spot, but hey, you snatched up Bluey, stud. You got Jazidi, stud. Zen's a stud himself. It looks like a good roster, but there might be a little bit of issues here breaking when we got Bluey in the chat saying he might be leaving soon.
Yeah, I mean, definitely don't want to see that coming in early. I mean, we're not even in week 1, and Bluey's talking about a potential trade to the Phoenix Phantoms. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I got all nice things to say about Bluey. I've not heard a ton about Jazidi. Zen's solid. I mean, for 315, that's a fantastic price to have. I mean, definitely underpriced there. And, you know, I'd like to see Bluey stick it out, at least for a week or two before you start, you know, thinking about the trade line. But, hey, man, it's your choice. You decide, you know.
Bluey's the KD of the league coming from Dimitri. I mean, you got to wonder if there's a trade going down. I mean, you spoke highly of Gamma there a second breaking, so maybe you see... Maybe see Gamma for Bluey. I mean, that's a pretty fair trade on both sides. Cairo still get a chance to pair up a really good player with Jazidi. But you'd have to wonder why that trade hasn't been done just yet. Is it an issue on Cairo's side? Is it an issue on Phoenix's side? It seems like both teams are well under cap and have the players to make that move, but something's holding them back. And you got to wonder what that is. Maybe Cairo just doesn't want to let go of Bluey, and I don't blame him. I would want to do everything I can to convince Bluey to stay as well. Bluey, I would. If I was the FO, I'd be doing everything I can to keep you. Just like I know Wheat's doing everything he can to earn you and get you onto his team, because exactly what you did last season. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll probably be seeing that shakeup here within the next week or two. Now, another team that's kind of in an interesting spot here, we got the Raleigh Raiders. They came out here, they hit 11. It was an interesting thing seeing them go 11. I had them a little bit lower, but I do think they're kind of right in this area, right outside the top 10. I personally think a lot of that credit has to go to Select. Select's been a guy who's been able to come on to many different franchises and just kind of be a really good leader. He's a great coach. He's really good at trying to help get players that are around him better. So when you look at that roster, and you look at the salary cap, and like we've been pointing out here, breaking, they are a little bit lower down there on that salary cap. Select has an opportunity to really make these guys better and elevate their game. He's got a challenge in front of him. He has to build these guys up, because if they come out here right now as a 947, literally the lowest, I believe, third lowest price team in the league, things could get out of hand very, very, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're going to definitely have to grow as a team this season. They cannot stay at that, I mean, on paper, that average of 315, 320 price, because they're just not going to be able to hang. But, you know, what you said about Select is very true. He absolutely is capable of elevating his guys, and that's what I'd be like looking to see this season, is how well he can do that. Yeah,
100%. Big challenge in front of him. And then you got another team that's gone up quite a bit on the power rankings in terms of how... you know, where they fit for these salary caps. A 965 price team. The Lafayette Lightning, their team looks like it has a high salary cap, but it's only because they landed one of the top players in this league. Breaking, they grabbed Dizzy. Dizzy's been pretty active in the chats. We've been seeing him talking quite a bit, Couple teams saying, hey, Lafayette's kind of come down a lot compared to what they were last season. Dizzy, though, has been piping up. He's been saying, I don't think so, guys. Pay attention to me. Put some respect on my name. You know, he's got a good little supporting cast around him with Mux, who has championship DNA. I've seen this man win in multiple different leagues. And Feeds, who was a dominant player in Div 2 last season. Now, taking his chance up there in Div 1, looking to prove himself. You can't be in a better place to do that, though, with a guy like Dizzy in front of you getting ready to lead the way. This Lafayette Lightning's got a lot to prove, man, but I think they're in the right spot right now at 12.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hope that Dizzy rubs off on Mux and Feeds and elevates their game. I mean, Feeds is another player who, I mean, arguably was MVP last season, and, you know, you got Dizzy at the max salary, just gonna lead the way. And then Mux, I mean, an OG from back in the day. I haven't heard that name in a little while, but yeah, I mean, I am just curious to see how well this team does in the season, how Dizzy can elevate Mux and Feed's game.
Yeah, and Shocks with a huge hot take in the chat. Lafayette and Amarillo threw away their studs, and he's 100% spot on. I mean, I don't know what happened behind the scenes. I don't know if maybe there just wasn't enough of an attempt to earn those studs back onto the roster. But Amarillo, they did get Pizza back, but Lafayette's a completely different team. They were not able to retain Landon. They were not able to get Tiber or Juice to want to come back. You know, those guys were just not interested in coming back and representing Lafayette. And Amarillo's a whole new roster as well. At least Amarillo's able to recover a little bit breaking, but Lafayette's a bit of a shell of themselves at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they lost Landon, who was arguably one of their best players, and then you have Juice as well. And it's going to be tough. I mean, they have very big shoes to fill in Mux and Feeds. And, you know, I think they have potential. They have potential to get to a spot like that, but they really got to grind. They got to learn everything they can from that man Dizzy. And if they can do that, Lafayette might be back to their former selves. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely love it. Shock's talking his game in the chat, man. That's why he's my MVP. That's why he's the MVP, man. But after Lafayette, man, you got a returning squad with the Columbus flight. It's good to see them at that 13th spot. You want to see them maybe make a little bit of progress this season. It is literally the exact same roster that was on the outskirts of playoffs throughout the entire Div 1 season. Consistency was something that was lacking for Columbus. It seemed like each week we would see Max go off, and then Max would kind of die down. Danwall would have a little bit of a, start doing really good, and then out of nowhere we would see Bungo have a bit of a nice performance. But it never correlated to wins because not all three of them could really come together. Breaking now again, we're talking about this again, where we have a situation where the league has only gotten better, and you're bringing in a roster that didn't work last season with less of competition. How well could this possibly work out for these guys?
I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I hate to say it, but you don't want to be in a situation where you're hitting your head up against the wall. I mean, all these guys are absolute studs, but they gotta all be on their A games if they want to compete in this league, and that's going to be really tough to do because it's, Dan Wad can't have an off day. Bungo can't have an off day. Max can't have an off day, even just a little bit, because it's just going to be too big of a hump to get over in these Div 1 games.
Yeah, they're building off chemistry. They're building off years of playing together, and they're hoping that could get them through this. And I hope they can as well. Power of friendship, man. I hope it works out. I hope they're able to make it happen. Now, these bottom three teams are pretty similar in terms of builds. You're really looking at the separation being who the top player is. I mean, the Sentinels, they got Exy, 318 price player, Carson, and Corrupt. You got to wonder what the strategy is here with these bottom three teams. I know the Drifters were kind of keeping it close to the heart, keeping it with players that they know. Some of actually, this entire roster, besides Azimity, was Div 2 last season. So these Div 2 friends kind of moved it on up to Div 1, and they're basically saying, well, can we take a shot at it, see how we do? They might have a rude awakening once they run into some of these top dogs here in this season. But I wish them the best of luck. Swansea, I think, is just ahead right now, breaking because they got the top guy. But a lot is to be shown once we actually get this first week kicked off.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whenever you have a lot of cap space like that, I mean, there's got to be something else to fill in the gaps, right? Maybe it's chemistry, maybe it's time and experience of just playing together. Maybe, you got faith in all your teammates getting better, but that's what I'm looking for with these lower salary teams, is that they gotta improve during the regular season. I mean, they gotta improve dramatically during the regular season.
Yeah, and these guys down here, these particular teams, especially with Nave, and you got players like G3, Kenny, they particularly have made huge improvements just over the last 2 months of knowing them. Knowing them in RLM. They made drastic improvements through Div 2, and now they're at the bottom of Div 1, kind of moving their way up a little bit. So hopefully they can continue to do that, continue to learn, continue to grow, and before we know it, we're looking at them as mid-tier Div 1 players, maybe even the top players in the league. It would be absolutely amazing to see it for them. So if you guys didn't catch us at the beginning, this is the Division 1 power rankings right here for me and Breaking. Again, this was made up by a couple of the guys here in the server that really pay attention to the teams, really know what they're talking about, and this is an average between those gentlemen. Vigilantes taking 1, Swarm at 2, and Ronin rounding it out as top 3 for your Div 1 power rankings. So congratulations to those captains and those FOs doing a great job, at least passing the eye test to start off season number 2. All right, Breaking. Is there any sleeper team you're looking at here in Div 1 that maybe just kind of catches your eye a little bit?
I think I gotta go back to that Repeat team, because I just don't know if Repeat would play with people that he doesn't feel comfortable with. He's got to know that he can win with this team, right? I mean, he's been at the top level before. I mean, Midland at 7, that's what I'm going to say my sleeper team is.
Midland at 7. Okay. Yeah, definitely see that we're sleeping on him a little bit. Definitely with a player like Repeat hanging outside top 5, I can definitely see that. Alrighty, guys, that is going to do it for Division 1 Power Rankings. Again, this will be posted real quick. Want to shout out my guy, Nave. If y'all love the graphics, which I know you do, our guy, Nave, has been putting in some great work behind the scenes, getting this stuff out as quick as possible for us, and these graphics look as good as they ever have. So, shout out Nave in the chat. I saw him here earlier. Thank him so much for what he does for RLM behind the scenes. These graphics have been absolutely amazing, and they've been great to have here for the start of Season 2. Now we're going to be heading to Division 2, a lot of times the more active league, a lot of new faces, a lot of exciting players, a lot of exciting new players, and some returning OGs. Now we're going to look at this Div 2 power rankings with our number 1 team heading into week 1 being the Morgantown Monsters. Congratulations, Morgantown, coming in at number 1.
Wow. Morgantown used every single inch of cap space to get that team possible. Kurame making a return to the Morgantown Monsters, and then bring on Metros, who arguably, in my opinion, is looking like the best player in Div 2 right now. And then Brayden, another stud, dude. I mean, this Morgantown Monsters team is looking as great as it ever has, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you gotta love the opportunity here for Metros, man. I mean, he was a trooper last season. He was waiting for just an opportunity to play on a team at any point. He got put in the Detroit Dragons, which was kind of a struggling franchise. As you see, they're not here anymore. We lost the FO early, kind of a bit of stumbling. Metros tried to save it, tried to revive it, just couldn't do it. And he fell a little bit in the draft. I mean, he truly fell a little bit of the draft, and I think a lot of people were not paying attention to how good he was actually on Detroit. And now with an opportunity to play alongside Kurame, who is a seasoned veteran here in RLM. Ronnie is he's a great player. He had a lot of success last season. And they're pairing up with a newcomer, Brayden. Brayden's a player who I've seen play in a couple of private 6-mans. He looks good. He looks excited. He looks engaged and locked in. This Morgantown Monsters could be a nasty roster here, and they're definitely well deserving of that number 1 spot here in Division 2. You could see Metro as a potential MVP this season, Breaking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my projections is Metro is going to be a top 3 player in the league, and I wouldn't be too surprised if he wins MVP. I mean, I think Div 2 is sleeping on Metros. That's my opinion.
100%. Now you see the Phoenix Phantoms coming in at number 2. I think the only thing you can be shocked about is that maybe they're not 1. I think this is a well-deserved 2 spot right now. I argue 1, 2, 3 right here for Phoenix. They're definitely a top 3 team. Just first glance at this roster, the Phoenix Phantoms were extremely successful in Season 1 behind Wheat, Jonah, and Oblivion. And as much as we love Oblivion is going to be a dog this season. They have technically traded up and then now have Arc as the top player on this team. So Phantoms have only really gotten better. They're led by their core of Jonah and Wheat, and now they're building around Arc with obviously Nave moving on to Div 1. Phoenix Phantoms could come out swinging the start of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. But Arc has got to fill the shoes that Nave left. I mean, Jonah and Wheat are great facilitators. They're great shooters, but they need somebody else to help carry the weight as well. And if you can facilitate around those two guys, I mean, that Phoenix team is going to be a well-oiled machine. I think Arc can do it. I think Arc can fill in the shoes that Nave left.
Oh yeah, especially with all the high praise you hear about Arc throughout the season, or just throughout the off season, really, when he came in. But a team that I'm very excited for is the Lafayette Lightning. Very disappointing ending to the season. I think Juicy will be right there to agree with that. It was a very disappointing ending to what the Lafayette Lightning were doing. It seemed like they were finally making the right run for the playoffs. It seemed like they were getting hot, and then things just really fizzled out quickly. The one thing that the Lafayette Lightning were constantly missing was not the defense, it was the offense. The offense was really subpar at times. They kept their core in Juicy and Dizzy Dave, and now they brought in, when I was watching tryouts, probably the best offensive player I personally got to watch during tryouts, Akeza. This guy looks to be the answer to make the Lafayette Lightning a top contender this season. Juicy recognized it, and clearly the PR team recognized it as well, as they're sitting top 3 right now in the power rankings.
Yeah, I mean, they got the guy they needed to get. I mean, last season, Juicy, Dizzy, and Zach, that was a crazy defensive team, but when they couldn't get their offense going, it made their defense struggle a little bit, and that's what we saw in the playoffs. And now that they got Akeza, leading the charge at 282, maxing out their salary, and then you got the duo Juicy and Dizzy. I mean, this Lafayette team could win it all.
Bold predictions early. Potential champions right there in the Lafayette Lightning. Now, here's another team that actually has a champion on their roster, the Paris City Swarm, with the reigning champion Dylan, who was representing the Miami Skyline last season. Miami has transitioned over to the Paris City Swarm, where the Queen Bee Dylan has got his little bee army around him, trying to build another championship roster. Maybe potentially a little bit slept on so far. A lot of question marks around the team and the decision making on the roster. Dylan seems confident in it. CJ seems locked in. The team seems committed to getting better and working as a team. They got Oblivion. They got Oblivion this season, Breaking. I did love that move. Breaking was such an important piece to the Phoenix Phantoms franchise last season. I believe Phoenix was going to go for him. I believe the Raiders were going to go for him. I think there's a couple franchises that wanted Oblivion because of how good he is at his price. So the Swarm stole him early in the first round. And because of that, I think that's why they're sitting a top 5 team in the power rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Oblivion, for the Phoenix Phantom, was definitely an underpriced player. I mean, connecting with Jonah and Nave. I mean, now he's going to do the same thing with Dylan and Siege. And it could be really good for that team. They could make some noise. They could make some buzzing around here in RLM Div 2. And I'm curious to see it. I mean, Dylan and Siege have been playing with each other for a long time. And then you just throw a well-rounded player in Oblivion who could really do it all. I mean, that's going to be another team who could win it as well.
Yeah, 100%. We're talking about great teams. We're talking about great franchises. I want to talk about a great captain for a second. I think the Ronin, you're looking at potentially a captain of the year type player in Ranchi, man. Ranchi Romanian, when he took over for the Columbus flight, Oki in the chat can vouch for it. A lot of guys playing for Columbus can agree with this. He was one of the best captains that took over and really saved a struggling franchise in Div 2, where it seemed like it was all over. And he came in and he really turned things around. Obviously, had a lot of help with guys like AJ and just having a lot more success in the back half of that season. Now getting a fresh look, a fresh start with a fresh franchise in the Nagasaki Ronin with the leader behind them and my guy Knuckles. He's built a team around him, and he's got 2 guys around the exact same price, Breaking, so he's got to have some strategy around it where he's kind of the pivotal piece. He's the top guy, and he's got two studs that should play very similar. There shouldn't be too much of a skill gap between those two.
Yeah, I'd agree at everything you've just said. I mean, Ranchi had a rough. I mean, he was left with a lot of missing pieces in that Columbus team. I mean, when Drizzy just didn't have the time available and then was off that team, and then they had to drop Henry, and that team was looking like it was falling apart, and then Ranchi came in there and saved it. I mean, saved it from potentially not even making playoffs. And now that he's got some big players like that around the same price, I mean, he's got the support he needs in order to win a chip.
Oh, 100%, 100%. I'm very excited to see what he's able to do. Big opportunity to start off fresh, start things right. Another new look team getting an opportunity with a player who didn't get too much play time last season, but he's came in and he is ready to rock and roll. The Tokyo Drifter sitting there at 6. They got Joy, who he's been able to build a really good team around him. I think the main guy who kind of brought this team and elevated him up is that guy Goose, man. Goose came out and he looked very, very good in the tryouts. A lot of captains, a lot of FOs were eyeballing this guy. He was very offensive. He was one of the more consistent players I was able to see, consistently putting up good numbers, good score each and every week. Boost dominant, field dominant type player. And then you come and you look at the roster breaking, and he's not even the highest priced player. He's got someone technically a tier above. Almost 10 points, actually 10 points exactly in Cryptus. And a lot of these new guys speak pretty highly of this guy. This Tokyo Drifters team could be aggressive. And they could be pretty nasty here early in the season.
Yeah, this could be another sleeper where, we haven't heard a ton about them. But, I mean, like you said, Goose and Cryptus on a same team together. Two top-level players. And then you just throw Joy into the mix. It's another team that could be slept on a little bit, Camaro.
Yeah, 100%. Now I think, honestly, I asked you this question, did one biggest sleeper team. I think the biggest sleeper team you're looking at right here also falls at 7. That's the Bladesmiths, man. The only reason the Bladesmiths are sitting this low is because the 3 guys getting ready to come in and play have not made an appearance in quite some time. These 3 guys I also think are lower because their salary cap just shows at 787. So it looks like a lower price team. But these 3 dudes, I've seen them play. I've especially seen Reaper and Rambles absolutely ball out. I believe it was Reapers, Rambles, and Outbacks. I could be misspeaking on the third, but it was one of the fastest, most aggressive teams I've ever seen play with my own eyes in these kind of divisions. And now they're adding one of the more offensive minded players in this league in Parrot. Parrot is going to have so much time and so much space if things work out the way that obviously Toledo wants it to. This could be a nasty team. It could be a dangerous team. It's going to be a fast team. You got to be able to meet their speed or they're going to just run through you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rambles, that's a name I haven't heard in almost a half a decade. I remember that guy was playing at the top level back then. And if he can go and play at that top level again, he used to play in that Div 1 price range. If he can get up to that talent that he used to play at, it's another team, like you said, that could be slept on. It could just run through this entire thing.
Rambles coming out of retirement was extremely exciting. It was really great to see him do that. I'm excited to see him come back. I thought he was done with Leeds completely, but he made an appearance back, and very fitting team with the Toledo Bladesmiths. It looks like it fits. It looks like it suits them. I think they're gonna have a lot of success this season. I think they're gonna move up these power rankings very quickly. Now, another team I think sitting in a really good spot right there at the middle. It'll be interesting to see what they're able to do. This particular group I had a lot of praise for last season, and they really fell hard throughout the season. So sitting in the middle, they look good again. They're passing the eye test. I'm absolutely loving what the Raw Lee Raiders look like here. They go and get a great captain in Lion. Lion then gets his running mate Rogue, who Rogue is one of them, in my opinion, still one of the better players in Division 2. He won't say it. He doesn't want to agree to it. I understand, humble man, but he is a very consistent piece. Lion's going to be a striker of the year this season because they get a guy that they've actually, I feel like, are going to be the most comfortable with. I think they really wanted Oblivion here, in my opinion, but they get to go with this guy named Element. And Element was another one of those pieces that was in an awkward situation last season with the Detroit Dragons. He never really just fit with the squad he was running with. I think he's now going to be paired up with 2 guys with great chemistry in the Raiders, who are very comfortable with each other, who know each other very well, know where they're going to be on the field, and Element's just going to be a plug-and-play piece to where he can help out anywhere on that field. And the Raiders, they're going to be a top half team for the majority of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the big thing I was looking at last season is Rogue and Lion just needed somebody who could click with them. They're a great duo together, but without that third piece, they struggled last season on AMA. And if Element can fill in the gaps that Rogue and Lion have and click with them, that's another very well-rounded team that could go far in the playoffs.
Yeah, and the team that actually came from was this next roster, the Amarillo Armadillo, sitting right now at 9. They are the ones that housed the Rogue and Lion for majority of the season last year. Now they bring in some new faces. They bring in a fresh look. I think they're only sitting at 9 right now because when the power rankings were looked at, they were a little bit over cap. Now with them grabbing the man, one of the GOATs, Henry, coming out here to be probably, he's going to be one of the best third man in the league again. I absolutely guarantee it. I put the stamp on it now. He balled out last year. He was very consistent. Now he's out there with, I think, one of the more underrated duos. My guy Panda, praised him, but I also gave him as much heat as I could, man, because when Panda is on, when that guy Panda is playing well, he's one of the best offensive players in this division, hands down. Nobody can tell me otherwise. I have clips to prove it in RLM. The guy can absolutely perform in huge moments. He's got a better supporting cast right now with Henry, I believe, than what they had last season. Now with Henry, he's got his guy Kodak back. Panda should shine. They have a chance to move up in these power rankings, but it's going to fall on Panda's back again. I think he's ready to do it, though. He's going to have a way better season this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another duo that we have. I mean, we got a lot of these duos on these rosters that we're just missing a third piece. And if Henry can fill that piece, I mean, if they could fill that team, this is another team. And there's really not many teams in Div 2 who couldn't make a run for the chip. And Henry is going to be a great third man for AMA this season, in my opinion. Yeah,
Marco shouting out his teammate. Nervbot's the best offensive guy. Haven't had the privilege of seeing him play yet. I think I got to see a little bit in some tryouts. Obviously, I've heard great things about you, particularly Marco, and your team is actually next up in these power rankings, sitting here right at number 10. Obviously, I think a lot of the positioning for you guys has to do with the name of my man Marco here. A lot of franchises wanted Marco as their captain. Marco decided to pick these Midland Manticores for a reason. Clearly, Greninja was a little bit more convincing. Maybe Greninja just got to him first, and Marco just took the first captain spot that was offered. And now he's got a chance to build a team that I'm assuming he's comfortable with. I'm assuming he knows these guys. The way he's talking about a lot of these people, he seems very comfortable with them. That's a good sign for Midland. They could be a team we could be talking about as a sleeper team because we slept on them a little bit here at the early stages of this breaking. But in terms of what I've seen, I haven't got a chance to see these guys play yet. I'm looking forward to it. That man Drips down there at 252. I heard is an extremely great price player at the price that he is. I heard that he's been one of the steal sleepers of the draft. Down there at 252, this could be an elite roster, especially if Nerves as nasty as Marco's saying.
Yeah, if it's the same Marco that I'm thinking of, that man played in another league that I had just watched last week, and he dropped the ball a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. If it's the same Marco, I mean,
nah, can't be. Can't be.
Yeah, it is. It is going. There it is. Yep. All right. Yeah. I mean, look, Marco is a solid player. All right. There's no hate. There's all love here. Okay. But I gotta give a little bit of criticism.
That's crazy.
Here, right? You dropped the ball in the playoffs in another league. And it's different. It's different in RLM. I mean, the competition's here. You got to be on your A game 24/7 in the playoffs. I mean, there's going to be no room for errors like there is in that other league that I'm not going to bring up. But, you know, it's going to be fun. I mean, welcome, Marco. I'm curious to see what you can do in RLM. And, yeah, I'm curious to see what your boys can do as well.
Absolutely love it. We keep it real here on the podcast. Try to be as honest as possible. My man breaking, laying it down. So basically, Marco lied to my face, essentially, or he was trolling me. I'm not too sure, but Nervebot gets the opportunity to prove that here. Hey, stream spots, guys, just to make sure there's no confusion. Streams will be available where myself, Breaking, Pac-Man, the guys, the casters, we will be available. You know, we got Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. If you want to play on stream, we have a whole new overlay coming out for season 2 that I think you guys are gonna love. The stream times will be at 8, 8:45, and 9:30. Those are the slotted stream times for you captains and for you FOs and for you players. If you guys want to play on stream, those are the 3 times. And listen, anybody else in here as well, we are looking for more streamers. We got some great casters. The casting booth is filled with some studs. If you're interested in trying to learn some casting, we will be happy to take you in and welcome you in and try to work your way up. But we really need some trusted streamers at this point to really help out on some of the off days. So if anybody is interested, please do not hesitate to please shoot me a DM. I would greatly appreciate Breaking a DM. Let one of us know so we can try to get you in there. So with that being said, we're going to keep this thing rolling here. And I did see that, right? That was a mistype on mine. I'll get it fixed in the announcement. I do apologize for that. But next up here, man, we got the Columbus flight breaking with a new look captain. They go with the man AJ. The team looks very familiar though. Promising was on this squad last year. He's gone up a little bit in price. AJ recognizing an opportunity to bring back a stud, because you were talking about it earlier. He was one of the pieces that really came on and helped Columbus get back on track with the leadership of Ranchi.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that man AJ is always talking it up in the chats of how he can add value to his team. And man, I mean, he's throwing Dreamix in the mix, then Promising, who's looks like he's reached his peak at right now. And you know, whenever you're having a player who's pushing the top end of a rank, you know, you could definitely see that player get into the lower end of that Div 1 rank and then really show up for your team. Kind of like what Feeds did last season. I mean, he kind of pushed the skill level of Div 1. I mean, just hit it and really helped his team get as far as it did. But yeah, I'm just curious if Promising could be the man to do this season.
Yeah, and I absolutely love the confidence from my man Oki down there. He's got a point, man. Oki was one of the best sub-up players throughout the entire season. The man performed in Div 1, Div 2, Div 3. If anyone is confused with what Oki is referring to, this season you have unlimited sub-ups, guys. Unlimited sub-up for your teams. So if you're a Div 1 Morgantown Monsters and you want to call up a Div 2 player, you can do it at any time. It does not remove your player off the roster. So if your player does make it back in time for the game, they can still play. If you're a Div 3 team and you're wondering, hey, I don't have a Div 4 team, that's okay. Div 3 teams can take a sub up from any player on Div 4 on any roster at any time, as long as they are not a captain or the FO of the opposing team that they are facing that week. All right, feel like it's an unbelievably great way to try to keep the franchises connected and in unison and make sure the FOs are building great teams across all divs. So hopefully you guys like that. And then don't forget, we have the 4 temporary signings just like last year. I mean, basically you have your season, you can almost temp sign. So there should be no forfeits, should be pretty wide open for everybody. Now, after the Columbus flight, we got the Sentinels. And I want to point out right now, the Sentinels might have had one of the roughest drafts based off our power ranking here, Breaking, because they're outside of the top 10 just about in every division right now. Morg's got some work to do because he's got some new faces again out there, and they're not getting a lot of respect out here on these power rankings.
They are not indeed. And with that man Fort, I mean, that guy's midfield presence is absolutely legendary. And then you bring on somebody new in Rilo. And then I'm not too certain about Flazzy, but I mean, two 260 plus players. I mean, Rilo's 280. So I'm curious to see what they can do on the field. And knowing Fort, he ain't playing with anybody who isn't possible to win a chip with. So this Rilo guy, I'm hoping he can fill some big shoes, and I think it can happen. I've been hearing good things about him. Yeah,
and I think it comes down to just the cap. You know, they're sitting at 796, one of the lower tiers for caps, and it's a couple unknown players. Obviously, Fort's very well known in the league. Fort's a guy that I think a lot of teams are really going after. So it's great to see the Sentinels land that guy, and they got at least a foundation to build on. Rilo 280. And like you've always said, Breaking, when you got that price, you got to step up. You got to be ready. He gets a chance now, basically starting towards the back half of this league with an opportunity with a good foundation around him to really go after it this season. I hope he balls out. I hope he has a good season. Hope he enjoys it, and hopefully he's an RLM for life. Now, after the Sentinels, we got your old franchise, Breaking, the Boston Braves down here, man. They got someone that you're very familiar with, though, man. Brandon coming out as the captain in Div 2. Another player we're comfortable with in Pac-Man, someone we've casted quite a few games with, and a new face in Decaf coming in for Season 2. Break down this roster for us, man. They're sitting right now outside at 13, but they're an 807 price team. They're one of the higher price teams in the league.
I know. And it's the big thing is, can Brandon play to that level? I mean, we saw it in Div 3. I mean, he's got the mechs, he's got the skill, but he's got to play at that Div 2 level in all aspects. The comms, the passing plays, working together as a team. I mean, we did this well at Boston, but defense was a big issue on Boston. I mean, getting those comms out. I mean, I'm going to take some blame on that. I was not very great on defense. I definitely dropped the ball there, but, it's a team game, and I hope to see that the Boston Braves can get it done. I mean, I'm always rooting for my man Brandon. And they got Caster, Pac-Man on the Boston Braves as well. I mean, both those players have got to play their best. And then Decaf, I mean, like I said before, he's got to play in that 275, 280 range skill level. They got to play together as a well-oiled machine. Otherwise, they could get outpaced by some of these other Div 2 teams.
Yeah, just a lot of question marks around the roster right now, which is why I think it just kind of fell down outside that top 10 spot. And another team that's really in that huge question mark right now is the Cairo Cobras. Shout out my man Ty Rogers, stepping up big time and doing an amazing job at stepping up as a franchise owner here in the league. But he definitely struggled last season in Division 2 in particularly. He brings in an old name in my guy Bamboo, someone I've seen for a long time. So I'm very excited to see Bamboo back on the field. But Masterus, our guy Natris, who we all know the biggest clown there is, the most proud clown you'll ever meet. The question marks still arise, though. How locked in is he to play in a league? He's been in every single league I've ever been a part of. My guy has always been there to support. I've known him for years, but he's never actually played. He's never played. It's been years, and now he's coming in as an opportunity to play with Ty Rogers and Bamboo. It will be interesting to see how these guys look, because Bamboo's one of the OGs, man. These are some of the older players coming out here now, the veterans, and they're gonna try to take on some of these young guns.
Yeah, team old head over here. I mean, we got a lot of OGs. I mean, I can't even believe that I'm saying some of these names out loud in Natris, Bamboo, and Ty Rogers. The big thing for these guys is they gotta play at their top level. I mean, I know Ty Rogers can play at that top level. I mean, I've seen him play on a Div 1 team before. I seen Mattress play at the high Div 2 level, and same with Bamboo. All three of these players have got to reach their former peaks. Otherwise, like I said, we could be looking at AMA 2.0 here on the Cobras.
Yeah, 100%. Congratulations on graduating, though, Bamboo. Greatly, very excited for you, man. Very excited for you. So I think it's all going to be on the back of how Ty Rogers plays, man. He definitely underperformed last season, so I'm looking forward to seeing him bounce back. He should be the comeback player of the year at some point. Now, next up, you do got the Monarchs here, man. Another team of new names. Interesting spot that they land in, because they went after, I'm assuming, another group of maybe friends at some point. I mean, we got another one where sometimes these names they come up with breaking, I just don't even understand what direction they were heading in. I mean, clearly when they typed it out, they probably knew what they were doing, but I'm completely confused. I think it's Ali Rakian, Ali. I'm not too sure.
I don't know.
But Nate speaks highly of this person, so I'm excited to see what they do. And they got a pretty decently high price player in next, but the bottom two below 260 is just, that's what's got me scratching my head, especially with how many great price players are still left in this league.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm assuming as well, is that, you know, they're good friends, they got the chemistry, and that's what they're building on. But I'm curious to see what this we'll call him Al, is going to do at that 255 price, because, you know, Next had I think he was on a couple teams last season. He had kind of a quiet season, and then SARS, another player at that 255 rough price, and having two of those players on your team, I mean, they gotta be underpriced. I mean, we gotta be looking at something else on paper if they're gonna want to win a chip this season. Otherwise, it's gonna be a lot on Next to get things done.
Don't worry, Nave just hit us with the T, man. We know exactly what's going on. We know what the game plan is for the Monterey Monarchs here in Div 2. You gotta remember what the game plan is, though, for the Venus Vigilantes down here in Div 2. They went from the number 1 team in Div 1 to the bottom team here in Div 2. Obviously, these takes can't be 100% accurate. We haven't even seen these guys play, but this is one of those few landing spots where I can almost tell you 16 is the right spot right now for the Vigilantes. You know, Trojan down there, bottom Div 2, now jumping to the 275. He's going to have a lot to work with. He's got Melon. He's got Nate. Mel was a huge supporting player last season for Feeds, and Feeds, like I said before, has given him so much credit for the success that Feeds was able to have last year in Div 2. And I'm guessing Trojan's thinking, well, maybe I can get a little bit of that myself. Maybe I can get my game elevated by Melon like Melon helped out Feeds. But then Nate comes in at 251. And that's where I'm like, hey, there's nothing against this guy Nate, but right now you got two guys who, you know, they're not the highest priced players. You got a lot of cap space left over. Why not go for a little bit more balanced roster? Maybe they know something we don't know breaking, but as of right now, on that first look, that first glance, that's why they're sitting down there at 16.
Yeah, Nate's definitely one of those players who's a little bit underpriced. I don't know how underpriced he is, but he's a little underpriced. And If he can play how I've seen him play at his top level, I mean, it could be an even team as if they were to pick up another 270. But I mean, I think Power Rankings got it right. I mean, I ain't gonna expose too much, but I mean, it was pretty close to unanimous on 16, and they gotta show us something. I mean, Trojan has got to play up to that level that feeds that Nave played at, where they're the man. I mean, they are the man over there at that team, and you know, if Trojan can play up to that level, I mean, it could be scary. It could be scary. I mean, I've seen Trojan play at a high level before, and if he can just only get better, I think the Venice will be okay.
We'll see what he's able to do. We get 2 franchise shout-outs. You got Joy with his Tokyo Drifters, man. Brand new franchise out here. Brand new FO. Best thing I say is you did pretty great with the draft, man. You got 2 top 10 placements in power rankings in Div 2 and Div 3. But then it's huge head scratchers on Div 1 there, Joy. Bottom ranked team in Div 1. Coming in at number 16 right now. You got to keep a close eye on that there, my friend. You did great in 2 and 3. One, got some things you gotta watch, man. A lot of pressure gonna be on that unit to make some things happen. But other than that, they look great. And then you did see Knuckles coming out there as well with that redemption for the Nagasaki Ronin. I absolutely love what you did so far, Knuckles. I think you landed some pivotal captain choices. Did I hit that? I mean, the captains he landed, I feel like is what's made the Ronin so successful. They're top 5 in every div besides Div 2. And in Div 2, they're sitting, what, 6, I think? No, they're 5. They're actually top 5 in every one. Yeah, top 5 in every league. Maybe the best draft of all the franchises?
Yeah. I mean, they had great picks, too. I mean, I think Div 3 was the only one that was a little shaky.
Yeah, and even that, it's a little shaky, but still sitting top 5. So, you know, shout out Knuckles, man. Absolutely cooked in the draft so far. Uchi, I'm assuming you want me to talk a little bit about old Columbus Flight, man. Columbus Flight got some question marks, big ones in Div 1. Got us kind of scratch our head a little bit at the decision. I hope it works out for my man Max. He's one of my favorite FOs. Div 2 outside of top 10 as well. But you know, AJ is very confident in what he's been able to do. So I have a lot of faith in him. He does have promising, so there's a good chance they could come into that top 10. And then sit at 10 as well right now for Div 3. And speaking of Div 3, guys, leading the pack in power rankings, the Toledo Bladesmith coming out as the #1 team here in the power rankings.
Yeah, I mean, you got Riley, man, the defensive GOAT. And then you got Lucier. I'm going to call him Stormy because that's what I know him by. And man, I mean, you got an offensive powerhouse, and then you got a defensive powerhouse, and then you got physics in the mix, and that's who I'm really looking at when I see this Toledo Bladesmith teams. You got 2 high-end players, and then you got a player on the lower end. So if physics can play a little bit more volume, put that volume in, I think this Toledo Bladesmith team is going to be tough for everybody involved. But I think a lot of it goes on that man's physics back.
Yeah, I do think earlier today, though, I think Toledo traded away physics. Ooh. Believe it or not. I think they traded him for, I don't know, someone's got me in the chat, Sparky. And now physics goes to the Monarchs. You got to wonder why. You know what I mean? Like, what was the thought process there? You know, did Toledo really want Sparky? Did physics wasn't happy with the potential #1 team, so he wanted to go to 2? I don't exactly know what that decision making was or what kind of went on behind the scenes.
It could be preferential. I mean, physics just might have wanted to play with the Monarchs. I mean, that's what pops into my head. But Sparky's an equivalent player. I mean, that's a lateral trade. I mean, you trade one thing for another. I think Sparky's a little bit more well-rounded player than physics, but I mean, physics is going to bring a lot to the Monarchs as well. So I think the Bladesmiths did well in this trade. I mean, so far, but Sparky, it falls on Sparky now. I mean, Sparky can't drop the ball. I mean, on that third man. I mean, when he's in the middle of these plays, he's got to mesh with these guys. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to see him play at his top level the man, the myth, the legend, Sparky.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. You know, we'll be talking about this trade at the end of the season, the middle of the season, when playoffs run around. Will this be a pivotal moment here in the league? I do still think, like you said, I think Blake Smith is still number one. There's no doubt in my heart it's between Bladesmith and Monarchs, though. I give that edge to the Bladesmith right now because they got Stormy, man. When you watch how Stormy played, if he's locked in with the Bladesmiths, man, Stormy was probably the best offensive guy. Maybe not named Nuki. I mean, it's probably gonna be between him and Nuki, a striker of the year already. And then they land, they don't land it, but the FO just so happens to be probably the best defensive player in Div 3. I don't know how there's gonna be a better defensive wall. I mean, he was a defensive wall in Div 2. Now he's gonna be doing it in Div 3. I think that he is going to be an absolute beast here out here in Div 3. And then the only question mark that I had with Riley was the offense, and he's got it with Stormy. So I think one is well deserved. It's going to come down to the third man at the end of the day. And you seem pretty confident though in Sparky.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident Sparky. I mean, I know when he puts the volume in, I mean, he can play up to a higher level, but he's gotta put the volume in. He's gotta put the time in, and I think that he can fill what the Toledo Bladesmiths need. But it's a lot. It's a lot on his back. I mean, we expect what we expect from Stormy and Riley. I mean, we know what they're bringing to the table there. But the only little question is Sparky.
100%. And I love the Monterey Monarchs, man. I absolutely love, Ahmed getting the captain spot. I think they did an absolute amazing job landing Ahmed because of how great Ahmed was last season for Miami. Miami only fizzled out in the playoffs because of, I don't actually remember the gentleman's name. I feel horrible right now. Burger. Hopefully Burger's doing okay. Hopefully all is well with our guy Burger, but he had some health issues going on, and he missed the match due to those health issues, and it really slowed down Miami. Nate recognized that. He knows that Miami squad, led realistically by Ahmed, could be elite, and now Ahmed's basically in the same spot he was last season. He got a striker, a stud in Nuki. He was raving about Nuki all season long, or all off season long. He got his guy, and now they add another offensive presence in Physics. They're looking to put the pedal down this season, Breaking, and just be a high offensive team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't say many things negative about Nuki. Nuki's a very good player. I've casted a couple of his games before, and I've played against him, and he's solid. He is very solid, and that's going to be a high offense team. I mean, defense is probably going to be the only question. I mean, that's the big thing with that Monarchs team is can they get their defense to work as well as their offense? Because right now their offense is looking like one of the best in the league right now. 100%.
I think Oki's putting it on the money. Physics really has kind of been hit or miss. He was very hit or miss last season for Amarillo. I've said it before. I'm not gonna shy away from saying it again. I feel like Cog was the main reason. Shout out Cog to be able to get that championship banner raised for Amarillo for Div 3. I think he absolutely just took over in the playoffs. He had one of the greatest playoff runs we've seen. He was rivaling Tamil. Him and Tamil were just going back and forth, just absolute dogs in the playoffs. Physics kind of sat back a little bit, sitting at 215 though. I mean, that's probably what he's supposed to do, right? But he's also known as like an offensive juggernaut at 215. So the narrative behind Physics is just very confusing to me at time, Breaking, because how, just the credit he gets for offense, but then he just kind of disappears at times. He's just very streaky.
Yeah, he's streaky, and he, as many players will say in the league, he's kind of stuck to the ground a little bit when it comes to his play style. I mean, he likes to stay there. He likes to be able to take his time control and then just bang it when he sees that net. And that's why he got a lot of goals last season, is because nobody was prepared to save, 6 to 8 shots a game. I mean, and that's what the shots he was putting up last season. And I mean, that was how he got on fire so soon, is because they see his Physics guy come in, and all of a sudden he's scoring left and right, and he's just hitting the ball straight at the defense, and they just have no idea what to do. And they gotta throw in some passing plays this season, because that, in my opinion, is just not gonna work.
100%. And Nagasaki, right where they're supposed to be, it seems like, always top 3 just every single time. Nagasaki is looking really good. Shout out Knuckles, you're doing a great job as FO. He brings in, let's not forget, the MVP the MVP right here, breaking coin, looking good, looking great out here with this new team, man. I'm gonna kind of step back here. I'm hyped for this team. I had them top 3. I think y'all are gonna be very good. Let us know what's gonna be happening out there with the Ronins.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. I mean, I get to play with my man's Knuckles. I mean, we've been playing a lot of games together. I mean, I think everybody kind of knew that I wanted to play with Knuckles. I mean, I was going to tryouts for good times and the memes and just trying to support everybody out there. But I mean, Knuckles came to me early on asking me if I wanted to play. And I was like, yeah, man. I mean, nobody's reached out to me yet. I mean, a couple people reached out for captaincy, but I don't have time to do captaincy. So, you know, Knuckles was like, hey, you want to play? And I'm like, sure. And then we got Azagul as well, who just fits that 241 price very well. But I think the big thing for our team is going to be consistency. I mean, I can't talk too much about Knuckles, but I was very inconsistent last season. I mean, I had weeks where I wasn't scoring a single goal. And then I had weeks where I'm having MVP season. So it just all depends on how inconsistent I am and how inconsistent Knuckles is. I mean, I know he had that one Div 2 game against Plugin where, you know, I don't know if he necessarily dropped the ball, but I think it was Knuckles against Plugin, and Plugin just had the edge there. And Knuckles has got to play at his top level, and I think he can. I mean, I've been playing threes with him, and it's been good.
Should be great to see. I think we hit it on the nose with the top 3. Only team you could say could slide into that top 3 spot is the team with, I'm gonna say right now, and again, may not be the most popular opinion, but I think this is the #1 player in all of Div 3. They got the guy named Seven. This is a player who is the top priced player in the league right now, and rightfully so. He's been playing extremely well. The question mark has been, who can he build around himself? Sky Newbie came in. Dude's it's just been a very active player. He's in the chats at all time. He seems locked in. He seems excited for the season. He seems like he's ready to go. And how could you not be excited when you got a guy like Seven as your running mate? You got the #1 player in the league on your team. Can't get any more exciting than that. So I'm beyond excited for this Paracity Swarm. I think that a lot of it is going to fall on the supporting cast, truthfully. You know, as the top price player that Seven is, I think he's going to do what he's going to do. I think he's going to play really well. But could there be a clash? Is he going to be too good? Is there too big of a spacing between him and Sky Newbie is really what the question is here for me right now for this team and why they're not top 3.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason, in my opinion, is why they've dropped so low. I mean, Silly Goose 7 is arguably, I mean, a Div 2 player. I mean, he softly, you know, asked to go up to Div 2, but, I mean, he's going to be an absolute stud down here. I mean, he's going to be doing big things. I mean, we're going to be seeing many clips from this guy, Seven, during the season. And, I mean, I think you said it well. It's all about that supporting cast. He cannot do it on his own. I mean, it's not a one-player game. I mean, it's Rocket League. It's threes. You got to play together as a team. And, yeah, I'm just curious to see how and Sky Newbie just fill in the gaps for Seven.
Yeah, 100%. And a team that I'm very, very excited to see how they play as a unit. And I hope that they feel offended for not being top 3. I hope it locks them in. It's these vigilantes out here, man. What a bipolar landing spot. 1 in Div 1, 16th in Div 2. They jump up to a top 5 spot here in Div 3. And let me tell you something. This is a well-deserved spot for them. I love this roster. They got the reigning champ Cognitive on the squad, ready to go. You gotta wonder how locked in Cog is for this season. If he's locked and ready to ride, he's got a great run. It's a couple great running mates. You've heard great things about Vokes. I'm pretty sure you've seen him playing in quite a few leagues breaking. I could be wrong, but he seems to know a lot of these new faces that have come into this league. And then a lot of people are raving about this Oinko guy. I haven't seen him particularly in many chats or in any tryouts, but with Cog and Vokes, and then you're telling me there's an even better player above them that's supposed to be that guy. This is a nasty team you got here.
Yeah, absolutely a nasty team. I mean, I've heard only good things from Oinko. And they got the reigning champ Cog. And then Vokes. I mean, all 3 of these players have hit that 1400 to 1500 rank at some point in time in their career. And, you know, I'm just curious to see how well they can play. I mean, looks like it's just going to be that well-balanced team. I mean, on paper, that's what it's looking like.
I like it. I like that approach for them. I think it's a smart approach right here in Div 3. I think it's going to work out. And you're looking at a team who's got another MVP caliber player. I think you're going to see him making good runnings for Defensive Player of the Year this season. I love the way he ended his season. And that's my guy, Tamil. A lot of pressure was put on Tamil last season. A lot of teams were just so high on Tamil. It was a little bit of a shaky start to the season, but it wasn't really Tamil. I finally caught on to that. It just was an awkward position he was in with the team. He finally got things figured out, balled out in the playoffs, came up short, but now as the captain, gets the chance this year to build a squad around him. I love to pick up a Hiccup. I like it because I think Hiccup's one of the best 215 price players. I got him up there with Sweaty, Rhea. I personally like Sweaty and Rhea over some of the, sub 215 price players. But hey, I'm not making the teams. But you got this guy Hiccup here who's a good player. And then my question mark here for you breaking is, who is this guy Step? I've never seen him play, but he's running with one of my favorite players in Div 3, so I got a lot of high expectations on this guy.
Yeah, I mean, Temo, the GOAT. I mean, he had a stellar season. I mean, one of the running mates for MVP last season. And then you got a player who's equally priced instead. I mean, I think we go back to it's kind of a situation with the Toledo Bladesmith with this Midland team. I mean, Temel and Steb should be playing up to that high level. It's all up to really Hiccups, and I've seen them be doing tryouts, so I don't know if they're sticking with Hiccups. I'm not sure yet, but word on the streets is that they are doing tryouts, and if I'm Hiccups, I'm asking to run some games. I'm trying to get them confident in me, or maybe there's something we don't know. Maybe Hiccups might not want to play. I mean, who knows? But whoever that 215 price is going to be, or 217, they got to play close to that level. I mean, otherwise, it could be a situation where one of the players is outpaced. Yeah,
big breaking news. You got to wonder. I mean, why would anyone be unhappy with running with a guy like Tamil? I mean, you got a top 3, a consensus top 5 player. There's not a single person in this league, whether new or old, that doesn't recognize Tamil as that guy. I mean, he has proven himself in almost any situation possible. So you got to wonder if maybe Tamil's unhappy. Maybe Greninja sees an opportunity with a trade piece in Steb. Maybe he's just looking for an opportunity to bolster that roster and just make it a little bit, or bolster that roster and just make it a little bit better. Maybe he doesn't like the super top heaviness. Maybe he wants to balance it out a little bit more. Let me tell you, there's a lot of things you can do out here in RLM with these rosters, what makes it so exciting. So many different routes that you can take. And it's going to be very interesting to see what ends up becoming the meta, what ends up working the best. I don't think there's any right or wrong right now, but I look forward to figuring it out with you guys throughout this season. Now, shout out to them Tokyo Drifters. Joy redeemed that earlier, man. This squad right here is one I am also very excited for, man. This Div 3 draft, let me tell you, Breaking, we talked about it earlier with Div 1 about how hard Div 1 was to break down the power rankings. I'm going to be honest with you, man. It was not as hard as Div 3. Div 3 was so extremely hard for me to break things down because I feel horrible putting a team with my guy Brendy, C-Jax, and Kyler down there at 7. I mean, Brendy was an absolute dog in every single trial I got to see him play. He was the best player I got to see watch in terms of offense. And then C-Jax is a stud. Love seeing my man C-Jax play. And then everyone's raving about this Kyler guy. So this might be that sleeper spot again we're looking at with this Tokyo Drifter squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this team falling to 7 is shocking. I mean, they are so well balanced in C-Jax, Brindy, and Kyler. I mean, I've seen Kyler play. I've played against Kyler. And, this man brings it. He brings it. He's demo heavy, offense heavy player. I mean, I just ran a scrim with him about a little more than an hour ago. And dude was going off. I mean, dude was playing very well. And, I'm just curious to see how well this Tokyo team plays. I mean, C-Jax is the main guy I'm looking at. I mean, they were so close to winning Camaro, so close when Temel came back for that last series, and yeah, I mean, it's just, he's got to play up to that level. I mean, he's got to play up to a high level, and he started to come on towards the end of the last season.
Yeah, absolutely looking forward to see what C-Jax does this season. He got put on the back half of last season. He had to figure some things out. Now he has a home early, well deserved for him. And now you got a new team here. They got an OG in the Twinkie God. The Twinkie man is back for another season. But they got a new face in Scribs. And I have to be honest with you, I think single-handedly that name Scribs is why they are sitting at that 8th spot. Just been highly raved about. A lot of players have spoken pretty highly of this guy Scribs as a captain, as a player. And I'm interested to see what he actually does end up bringing to the table. This was the first time I get a chance to see him play. I know what Twinkie God can do. He's a consistent player, and they got a top tier guy in Scribs. And I'm gonna say it. We haven't said it for Div 3 yet, but he's at that point where he's at that 246. He's got to play like a 246. That's what we say, Breaking. It's how we say it. He's got to do it.
It's how we say it. He's got to play close to that level. That's, 7. This is what, the teams are right back to back on the power rankings in a way. They're only 4 apart. And yeah, Scribs has got to play up to that level of 7. Tragic is going to do his best. He's going to try to bring it. And Twinkie God, maybe he's upped his game too. I'm not too sure, but that's the questions that come in the back of my head is that, is it Scribs playing up to that 250 level, or is it they're a well-balanced team and Tragic's a little bit underpriced and Twinkie's right where he should be, or is Twinkie the guy who's supposed to be filling those shoes? I just don't know, and I think that's why Phantoms are so high, is that the only thing we do know is that Scribs is solid.
Yeah, and the next team here, the Cairo Cobras, sitting at 9. I had them up here just because I think this is one of the better, more well-balanced teams. I love the duo of Magic and Zerko. I know the history between these guys. You could argue a little bit of movement here between the 7, between the 8, 9, 10, 11 spot. Really, in my eyes, the 8, 9, 10, 11 is kind of interchangeable at this point. Cairo, I think Magic and Zerko is going to be one of the better duos at that price point in the league, if that makes sense. I think down there at that price point, they're going to be a really good duo. And then they add Div, man. Div was a good player. Div was a solid player last season. And if I'm not mistaken, Div was on Amarillo. I could be wrong. But I'm almost certain he was on Amarillo. And I think the reason that Cobras do fall to 9 is exactly what my man Clifford down there is screaming. Zerko washed. I don't know how washed he really truly is, but he doesn't put in the grind like he used to. So, with him not being as active as he once was, I think that could hurt him. If Zerko gets back locked in, though, playing with his guy Magic, that's why they're a top half team. They could jump up into the top 10 consistently all season long, but it's going to be on the back of how much Zerko decides to play this season.
Yeah, I would agree as well. Zerko has got to elevate his game. Based on how he was playing last season, having Magic there is going to help. Div's just an all-around, well-rounded player, so not a ton of questions there, being in that 215, 220 range. But it's really on the backs of Zerko and Magic, and they got to play they got to play above the levels that I've seen them play in the past. And if they can do that, they can be another well-rounded team where all 3 of them are just solid. But they got to put the time in. It's simple as that.
Yeah, and another team I really think that time is going to be extremely important for, it's the Columbus Flight. Shout out Columbus, man. I got my man Oki in the chat. The only thing I'm most excited for, actually, I'm very excited for Oki. I'm very excited for Skyline. I don't know if there's rumbles of a trade. I think there's trade rumors, though, up in Columbus. I don't think there's a lot of cohesiveness right now. I don't know how happy they are. The Ryan Gave guy, he's very new. He's a player that I'm not familiar with. I have asked the question if his brother's also in the league of some sort, because there's a guy named Gave in Rye. They literally have identical names. But it'll be interesting to see if Oki can shine some light there. I want to say there are some slight trade rumors in Columbus right now with that roster. So that's why I think they fell to that 10th spot. I think looking right on paper, they are one of the lower priced teams in the league too, Breaking, which is also what kind of hurt them. I do know Oki is well known at playing above his price. He's a guy that can peak and elevate his game depending on who he plays against, I feel like. When we saw that in the playoffs last season, Breaking, when he was playing against the number 1 team, actually, you guys, he absolutely balled out, goes down to the bottom half of the bracket, plays, no offense, but a lesser team than what the Boston Braves were, and he wasn't the same player. So he really plays up to who he's playing with.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's going to be a lot on that man Okanos' back. And like you said, trade rumors, maybe that's the best option. They got a lot of cap space to work with. They have 22 to work with, Camaro.
Yeah,
they could get
maybe Stev.
yeah, maybe Steb. I mean, they could get a 245 player. I mean, or higher depending on who they get. I mean, if they take off Gov, I mean, they could get a 247 player. They can almost get the max price player depending on who they drop. And, you know, maybe those players at the lower end can play up to that level. I mean, maybe that's what we're looking at. But like you said, if they're not cohesive this early on, maybe it's time to make some moves before, you know, you start getting into the regular season.
Yeah, and I mean, with Midland being in that position they are, I mean, Steb for Skyline and Rye, maybe you know, hiccup Steb and Rye and Skyline and a package deal wouldn't be bad. I mean, I feel like Skyline running with Tamil would be a very exciting thing for me personally. Two personal favorites down there who I know can really ball out at times. But you got to wonder if Oki likes that fit, if he's ever played with Steb before. I mean, you're really building this thing around Oki. Oki showed he could be that guy for Columbus. He's earned that spot after what he did last season for Div 3. It's just a matter of making sure you get the right roster around. I love the pairing of him and Skyline, but again, I'm not the one playing, so it'll be very interesting to see what they end up doing throughout this week. Now, the Raiders next up on the board. A couple people asking, why are they so low? It's a good question. I'm not too familiar with them. I don't know Arteaza at 248. Stallify, you know, he was a top pick in the draft. But then you got Sirakami down there, 219, a very low price player. So it's more of a top heavy team with question marks around because I'm just not too comfortable with him, or I don't really know him too well. So that's why they personally fell for me. They got a lot of prove in the league before they can move up power ratings, get some of these more well-known teams that I know are going to ball out, that I know how well they're going to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all newcomers. I mean, that's the main thing. But I've played six mans and I've scrimmed with both Artaza and Sta, and they're two very solid players. I mean, the only thing I have to look at is Surakami. I mean, they got 5 cap space to work with, so maybe they could work with that, or Surakami just fits their needs. But I think they're gonna need to add a little bit of team. Maybe it's Surakami. I have no idea who he is, but those two players need some very specific type of player to work well with them, and curious to see who that person is. But both guys know each other for a decent amount of time, and it seems like they definitely have played with each other before, so I'm looking forward to it. Camaro
Twinkie said they crushed the Raiders in a scrim last night, coming straight from Twinkie God's mouth himself. Crushed
insider
them.
Information. You hate to see it.
There's been a lot of scrims going on between the Div 3 Div 2 so far. It's been very active. Been very active. Trojan, dude. Hey man, it's not just me putting you that low, man. There's a lot of people. Don't just come for me, Trojan. It's nothing personal. It's all on your back though right now. It's all on your back. So hopefully you step up, man. But we're on Div 3 now. We're well past Div 2. Now after the Raiders, you do got the Morgantown Monsters. They got a returning player in Carp who was on Lafayette last season, a new guy in Titanium, and one of my favorites in Rep Array, playoff rep, who really knows how to ball out in big moments. He's got big shoes to fill though right now. He's running with a guy Carp. The reason these guys fell for me personally is this, you know, who is Titanium? I'm not too familiar with that guy. He was a very late sign-up breaking. A lot of question marks around him. He didn't really go to a lot of tryouts. So a lot of question marks around this team, particularly with Titanium, and then if Rep can really be that guy to help support that man Carp. Yeah,
I mean, Carp had a rough season last season on Lafayette. They just couldn't get through. And yeah, I mean, he's got support in Titanium now, but he also had Exile last season, so I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of questions when I look at this Morgantown team and how well Carp and Titanium can play. I mean, Rep Ray can facilitate that 215 price. I mean, he's good for that 215 price. I know the Toledo Bladesmiths were looking to pick up Rep Ray, but my questions really are pointed at that man Carp and Titanium.
Yeah, 100%. And then you're looking at the Swansea, man. I mean, they got Bang. I mean, that was a piece of the puzzle last season for that very dominant Miami Skyline team when it was Bang, it was Ahmed, and it was Grading, and they were nasty. We thought that they were the number one team. We thought they were going to run away with it. It definitely completely crumbled, and that's not an understatement towards the end. It definitely really fell apart. Now Bang, free agent, whole new home, whole new team. He's got a guy, Crimson. I saw Crimson a lot of tryouts. I was very impressed with how Crimson was able to play. So you got two offensive guys. My big question is Morg, my man Burt Belicious there, and Morg, the FO himself. How locked in is he going to be? I kind of got him in the same boat at some point with, with our guy Natris. It's just playtime. He hasn't been grinding too much. If he can lock in and he can really elevate these guys, they could move up. But there's just a lot of these back half teams. You notice it's just too many question marks, or at least more question marks than what some of these top teams have, which is why they've fallen in this power ranking.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we know we're going to get out of Bang. I mean, he's going to be able to shoot the ball well. He's going to be able to play up to the speed that most of these Div 3 teams are going to want to play with. And then Crimson balled out in tryouts. I mean, another good player who did well. And like you said, Burt Belicious, I mean, his availability and how often he's going to be playing. I mean, this team, in my opinion, needs a little bit more than a 221 player. If Burt Belicious can elevate his game to that 230s price, this could be another team that could do better than expected.
Yeah, and a team that really could also do better than what we're looking at for power rankings is the Lafayette Lightning. They did just move on from Sweaty, which was a very interesting move. I didn't actually see the details of that trade, to be honest with you, Breaking. I did miss out on that. But dropping Sweaty was a head scratcher to me. There's just a lot of question marks around Jando. There's not been a lot of activity. There's actually been very, very, very little activity out of Jando. The only thing I know of Jando is he was very... he's very close with Juicy. They used to play together in years past. Obviously, Juicy's moved up to Div 2. Now you see Jando still in that Div 3 spot. Juicy saw an opportunity to get a guy he was comfortable with. He brought Jando in. But other than that, I haven't seen anything from him. I didn't see any tryouts. I didn't see a lot of activity. And he went after a top-heavy player in Nexus, going after that top team strategy. I'm not loving it right now, Breaking, and it's just really just a lot of how well are they actually going to play? How well are they actually going to do with some of these other teams that we're looking at? We're like, hey man, we actually know these guys. We actually really like this third. We like this makeup here. These more well balanced teams. So, Nexus is off the team 2 per Sweaty.
Yep.
Yeah. So Lightning's all in shambles. All in shambles already.
Lightning has moved on from Sweaty and Nexus, and they picked up Ultra with a 1 and YZY. I mean, I saw Ultra in tryouts, but I'm not sure who this YZY guy is. And I guess as Jando wanted a little bit more of a well-balanced team, maybe recognizing that he just did not want to play around at the 215. But I'd have to go look at the prices. I'm pretty sure this YZY guy is somewhat in the mid pricings, but we can come back to that.
Makes
but
sense.
The main thing, I mean, it makes sense, but the main thing I gotta look at is, Jando is a very well-rounded player, and I think he needs more on offense or defense from one of these players to where he can really play his game. I mean, he's kind of a player like Hemel in a way, where he's really got the well-rounded game, he's got the good game sense. It just, he can be limited based on how his teammates are playing, and I just don't know much about the Ultra or YZY.
Yeah, so they get an opportunity with a lot to prove, right? An opportunity to really come out and try to show us what they're made of. Obviously, Juicy out here saying, "Hey, let the man cook." So hey, we're gonna give him a chance to cook, man. He's gotta work his way up though. Right now the temperature is low on the stovetop, man. He got to turn it up, Juicy. You got to turn it up, man. So we'll see what he's able to do. Now another team with a lot of question marks. Probably the biggest question. 16 definitely got more. D Brown coming out here with a chance to play. He had an opportunity to really surround himself as the lowest, if I'm not mistaken, the lowest price captain / FO, 215. He didn't really go out and land any top dogs around him, Breaking, which is really where a lot of the, I like the pickup of Clouds, but then Kronks comes in. I'm expecting someone like a Steb there. I'm expecting to see like a Tamil there, like that caliber player at the top when you're the lowest price captain / FO.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep it real. This is gonna be an interesting team. I mean, I don't know if Kronks can fill the shoes of a 240 player based on how I've seen him play in tryouts. He's really gotta grow with his game. I've seen him in some lower leagues of other leagues, but Clouds is solid. Clouds is a really good player, but I know how all these guys play, and I'm just really uncertain if these play styles will mesh.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. Hey, D Brown, man. You know him very well after last season. He is a great captain and great FO, if that is the least we can say about this roster. So we just gotta trust in our guy D Brown and see what he's able to do. Another team with huge question marks is my guy Plugin, man. I absolutely love that guy Plugin. Also, shout out Plugin a little bit, guys. Show Plugin some love. A lot of y'all's roles, your transactions were processed by that guy Plugin, man. He's been on top of the sheets. He's been on top of the rolls. He's been on top about just anything we've asked of this guy. He's joined the Power Rankings team. He's just been an absolute stud behind the scenes. So shout out Plugin, man. I greatly appreciate all the work he's done for RLM. Now, with that being said, I don't know what the work that was done in this Div 3 plugin. I'm not a huge fan of what I'm looking at. I don't understand the idea of going back after Ultra. Absolutely love Ultra at 215. He was on the team last season, so maybe that's why he did it breaking. Maybe he felt some kind of loyalty, some sort of chemistry. But, grabbing that 215, we didn't really need to go after the 215. You could have went for a more higher tier player there. It's got a lot of, it's got me scratching my head.
Yeah, I mean, I love my man Plugin. He's been putting in work in a lot of places, but he's kind of notorious for drafting a little funky, and I feel like this is a little bit of a funky draft coming out from Plugin. I mean, it seems like as the season goes on, he makes changes in the right direction, but if this teammate, I mean, hey, if he's trying to play with the boys, I get it, but if he's trying to win a chip and this team doesn't work out early, I mean, he's gotta make some moves, because I don't think that Plugin can do it all on his back.
Yeah, so like you said, we'll see what he ends up deciding to do. He's got Zooey at least as a piece I'm somewhat excited for. He's a little bit of a washed player who he hasn't played in a long time. Zooey maybe can get right. It could be the turning point for him, but we'll see. But that does round it out for Division 3, guys. We're going to quickly go through Div 4 so that way me and Bray can get things wrapped up, as it is getting a little late. But for the Division 4, if y'all have not been paying attention, we did add Div 4 this season. It is a lower priced. It's the lowest price league we've had. We only have eight teams, though. So all my Div 4 guys, all my guys that have been hanging out, waiting for their opportunity to have a couple minutes here on the podcast, get your friends in here. Get your teammates. Get the guys you know. You got to know somebody on your friends list, because if you want Div 4 at your level to survive and strive, you got to get more people in. There's no reason why the lowest priced people should be our hardest div being put together. It's supposed to be the opposite, man. We have an ample amount of Div 1, Div 2, Div 3 players. We got to get more Div 4 guys in here if we want to keep this going. We should be adding on more franchises for this next season. So I trust you guys. I know my man Greninja's putting in work. I saw how many people you brought in, brother. I appreciate you. But the rest of the new guys, man, we got to lock in. We got to do it if you want to keep it around. That's all. But
Absolutely.
We got 8 breaking. We got 8. These are the 8 we're looking at. Cairo starts out at number 1.
I mean, it's a start, Camaro. I mean, all divs start at one place, and Div 4 is a hard one to get going, but Cairo looking scary. To be fair, he's on Lafayette last season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did.
And then I don't know too much about Darth Nefarious and Jakey Duh, but to be fair there, I mean, an old Div 3 player played in Div 4 now. I mean, he should be making noise.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, is really poised right here to have an amazing season. Right up there, I think him and Casanova, both guys that were contributors on teams at one point last season in Div 3, now with an opportunity to play down there in Div 4. They really should have an opportunity to have great MVP caliber seasons in Div 4. I like To Be Fair's spot a little bit more, just because in terms of power rankings, this team's a little bit more balanced. You kind of cross him off and Cass, and then the supporting cast behind them, 570 versus 568 in terms of cap space. So I think that's why Cairo got it. And then you got the guys in Morgantown, man. You haven't had a chance to see this guy Hazy play, but he's someone who used to play quite a bit breaking, and he's played a lot of games with Buzz. And so I love the balanced approach that Buzz Nutley has done with this Morgantown team. I think they easily could end up being the number 1 team. It's just right now with how it lays out in power rankings, I got them at 2.
Yeah, I mean, this could arguably be the number 1 seed. Hazy played very well last season. I mean, I got nothing bad to say about Hazy. One of the players, I mean, I was always saying, hey, if you're looking for this kind of price player, pick him up. I mean, he is underpriced, and even now, to some degree, he's a little underpriced. And I'm just curious to see if he's elevated his game from the last time I've seen him play. I mean, he could have potentially an MVP caliber season. And then you throw Paxton into the mix, a name I haven't heard in a little bit of time, and then throw Buzz Nutley there. This is looking like a very good team. But a lot of it's going to be on Hazy. I mean, Hazy is one of these players who, you know, got on teams in leagues that I used to be in, and, you know, mid to end season just, you know, was in that sub spot as many of these Div 4 players were, and just didn't want to be there and said, hey, you know, play me or I don't want to be played. And this is the big thing with a lot of these Div 4 teams. They got a lot of great Div 3 subs now having a chance to make some noise in Div 4.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of the Div 4 guys, be ready, be available, be approachable for these Div 3 teams, man. Just try to be there for them, so when they do need to call a sub up, you can play, get some opportunity, get some play time. The ultimate goal is to work your way up into Div 3. You don't want to hang out here in Div 4 for too long, or you know, really not very long at all. There's no prize pool, there's no stream matches. It's really just a development league for you guys to have some fun and get some opportunities. If it becomes more popular, if we grow, maybe we can change some of that stuff. But as it stands right now, that's just where it is. Now you're looking at the fourth team. They got the guys. They got the man Greninja. They got Cyber, Frosty. You know, I'm putting these guys forward mainly because of Greninja, to be quite honest with you. And then the same can be said about Toledo. That guy Polosh, man. I believe Polosh is that's our Switch residence, man. He's one of the best Switch players in the league. We've seen him ball out as a sub last season, man. And I think you're kind of looking at particular players right now as to why some of these teams are where they are in power rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, that man Polash, just as you bring him up, I mean, absolute stud. But yeah, I mean, if we're looking at Boston, I mean, now we got Casanova. We got Casanova, man. And he's another very good player that's going to be thrown into the mix. And then you got Dubs and Nugs, a name I haven't heard for a little while as well. And then Rosie, I haven't heard that one. But man, oh man, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Div 4 is going to be competitive as well, Camaro.
Yeah, you got Div 4 with some of the more active FOs, right? I mean, like Greninja's been one of the top ones. Buzz's been consistently the top one. Now they get a chance to go out there and play, man. I mean, I think Greninja is going to have an opportunity to go after an MVP caliber season. And I think the most important thing when you're doing with these Div 4 teams, you got to get your star player. I feel like breaking. I feel like a star top heavy player right now in Div 4 is going to be so much more important than maybe what we were talking about in Div 3, Div 2, and Div 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the gaps are definitely there with Div 4. I mean, we're as low as the low diamonds. The low diamonds up to low champ 2 on the higher end, if I'm not mistaken. And if those champ 2s can peak a little bit, maybe play up to a champ 3 level, I mean, they could absolutely run over a Div 3 team or Div 4 team if they throw out a little bit of mechs.
Yeah, and speaking of mechs, there's a very underrated mechanical player down there at number 6 for the Columbus Fly. It goes by the name Man. Young man, very, very young. One of the youngest players that were able to qualify in the league. He's got the mechanics. He's got the mechs. It's just learning the rotations, getting the game down. Hopefully he can progress here in RLM and get up to that Div 3 spot. I think you're looking at potential striker of the year right there for him. That team's got a lot to prove, though. Vixay was a bit of a journeyman last season. He had some great performances, but he could never really hold a spot on a team. Now he's a top dog out here in Div 4. Hopefully he has a good season. And when you're looking at Amarillo, you know, that's the dad gang right there, man. Know those guys for a very long time. They're a couple studs. I know they're excited for Div 4, and I do hope that they're able to ball out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, I look at that Columbus team. You got Uchi, and then you got Vixay, and man, I mean, Vixay played really well last season. I mean, whenever he was getting dropped from teams, I was turning my head for a couple moments, going like, I don't know if Vixay was really the problem there. And yeah, I'm just curious to see what he can do in Div 4. I mean, I think he's gonna be one of those top players again in Div 4. And it's just going to be curious to see how well he plays with lower ranked teammates. I mean, that's the big question for a lot of these former Div 3 guys is how well can they play with the Div 4 guys?
Yeah, 100%. And then you're looking at the roster, and it kind of makes me eat my words a little bit here in some sense, because I did say, how important I feel like it is to have that number one player to be high on power rankings. Nagasaki literally has the highest priced rostered player in the league, and they're the worst power rank team on the sheet. So yeah, maybe I kind of messed up a little bit there in a sense, but at the same time, I don't know who Mini Rooster is. Have not seen them play, have not seen a chat from them, have not seen them very active. So I think activity is key as well. And you got to think too, that's one of the bigger price gaps that we've really seen in the Div 14s. Very, very, very far apart in price there. So you got to wonder if there's going to be any sort of like skill gap there between those three down here in Div 4.
I mean, that's what I gotta think, but word on the street is that that Shinzu, both these guys are his buddies, and Knuckles reached out to him and was like, hey, you can pick up a higher priced player, and he's like, oh, so apparently that's probably his way of saying I want to play with the boys. I mean, but here's see. I mean, they definitely gotta play high enough in skill to make up for that 15 price gap. Is that's a lot. I think that's the biggest gap in Div 4 other than AMA. And yeah, I'm just curious to see if they can make up for that gap.
Yeah, and I actually will say one thing to my man Buzz. I'm not going to out the name because it's not my place to do that. But there are actually some players. I don't want to say players. I think it was one or... I know of one that's actually older. That's actually older than you, man. But I will not out the name. But I just thought that'd be funny to say to you, Buzz. But that's going to do it for Div 4 as well, guys. Obviously shorter simply because we only have 8 teams down there in Div 4. Juice wants to shout out the good old Lafayette Lightning. Yeah, shout out Lafayette, man. Hopefully you guys have a good season. Came up short. Just came up short, man. I mean, be honest. Div 1 came up short. We lost those guys. I'm excited to see what that man Driz can do up there in Div 1. Div 2, we got a chance to, a chance to come back, man. I love the roster. I had you guys top 3 as soon as I saw it. I absolutely love the way y'all put it together. As Juicy coming out with the 5 gifted subs. Thank you so much for that, Juicy. And then, Div 3. Div 3's just got to kind of build off of what they did last season, just get a little bit better. I thought y'all be bringing back some of the players that you used last season, but you definitely went a different direction. I hope that man Jando can step up. Like you're saying, we got to let him cook like you're saying, but there's also a lot of shakeup. I mean, shakeup this early is not always the greatest sign, in my opinion, there, Breaking.
Yeah, it's not. And you don't want to see all that happening this early because that means that you didn't do something right in the draft. You didn't do something right when you were scrimming. You made a mistake. And, I mean, before the season even starts, I mean, it's got to raise some eyebrows. And Jano's got to get the train back on the track. Otherwise, he could be having a season where he's dropping and picking up people because he just doesn't know who's really going to play well with him. And that's why tryouts are so important. That's why preseason is so important. You got to see, these guys, and you got to play with them too. I mean, it's one thing to try out guys, but you got to play alongside them as well because you don't know how they're going to play with you until you play with them.
Yeah, I mean, hit it on the nose, man. Hit it right on the nose. Well, guys, that is going to do it for the first real official podcast of the season. Me and Breaking plan on doing that quite a bit. Just kind of going over the power rankings each week. We're going to update that consistent. We got a great power ranking team right now. We're just going to continue to try to get that out as quickly as possible. Again, shout out Nate for putting that together. Like always, I'm going to let my man Breaking say his piece, kind of get things wrapped up for us, and then I'll say it, and then we'll get on out of here.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to be casting these games alongside my man's Camaro. And it's going to be a competitive season. In my opinion, the most competitive that we've had so far. And RLM's only growing, and we have to thank you guys and the staff that's been working so incredibly hard to bring Season 2 to you guys. And big shout out to all those guys. And big shout out to the people who have been supporting this channel in the Twitch channel and the people who have been playing on streams last season as well. Another little shout out here. The stream is the lifeblood of RLM. You gotta show up. If you're a Div 1 player, if you know Div 1 players, bring them on stream because that's what helps build this prize pool. I mean, once that gets going out there and people start to see that, they'll start joining the league, and then they might be subbing, and then that money just gonna go right back to you guys. And we can only make a bigger and better league from that point on.
100%. Could not have said it any better. Only thing I want to add is, guys, the schedule is released. If you didn't see the announcement, make sure to check out the schedule, please. That has been dropped as well. Get familiar with that. Stream times, again, just like Breaky was talking about, we're going to be here Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 8 o'clock, 8:45, 9:30 are your stream times on those 3 days. And if you're anybody who is interested in streaming, please, 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 shoot me a DM, shoot Breaking a DM. We are looking for more streamers. That's really been the only thing that we're still kind of sort of missing. It's just a couple backups that we can really count on. It would be huge to have, to know we can count on somebody for that. So if anyone is interested, please feel free to shoot the DMs. But again, thank you guys so much for an amazing kickoff to the season. Greatly looking forward to Thursday night. Hopefully we get some stream games. Y'all make sure to fill that out. Y'all make sure to get them games in there. But that is going to do it for me and Breaking tonight. We're out of here. Love you guys. Peace.
Peace.